And all I want is two humbuckers, three-way, one volume, push-pull for coil tap. Dude, I am right there with you. When it comes down to it, that is exactly what I want. I want less is more. I On my personal guitars, there's no way I'm putting a five-way switch on it. I'd much rather have a push-pull and three-way toggle switch definitely, and then just the ability to split the coils. Like I said, that's all I need, and two humbuckers. I am a simple man with simple tastes. Get anything more than that, and it becomes, well, my brain goes kaboom. I still remember, like, well, you guys have probably seen, if you know Crimson guitars, you've probably seen the Robert Fripp models, which have 50,000 different switches and pots and everything else, and the wiring inside those is insane. I used to be so happy that I wasn't in that department working on wiring, because every single time that they had to wire one up, they had to have two, three different people at least have a look at why it wasn't working and what part wasn't working. And yeah, it's. I just looked at the cavity and I was like, oh boy, I'm not even going to touch this. Not in a million years. I have no idea what any of this stuff does. Although I gotta say, I just saw that they had posted a finished Fripp model, and I kind of really do like the new setup that they've done there, with the back also being sort of like a back plate. Well, the back of it, how would I put it? It being a sandwich type guitar. So they flame maple top, flame maple back, mahogany on the middle. That actually looked pretty nice. Same, I never understood all the switches and combos. Like, do you really use it on stage? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm not a stage musician. I'm very much a. Um, I don't call myself a musician to start with, but I play guitar and I record guitar at home, and more so, I like to have a workhorse guitar that does everything I need it to, and then I get different sorts of flavors of sound from maybe different plugins. I don't have amps, so different plugins, but different guitars. But for the most part, all my guitars are tuned differently, so I use them for certain things. But yeah. And while I may say less is more, I'm not saying that I'd immediately go for one humbucker straight into the output jack. I feel like having at least some adjustability is good. Complicated guitars can be good for writing than something simpler for stage. Yeah, exactly. Like they have a purpose. If you want that one guitar that does literally everything you need it to, and use it more as a tool for writing and come up with everything, then it makes perfect sense to have something that does everything for you. Yeah, I'd rather have a modeling pedal board instead of all the switches in the guitar. Now, maybe we come to the my brain just completely turned off right there. Maybe the compromise here and the mid ground here would be the Shrieking guitar and a Helix pedal board, like we have discussed with at least with Robin before. On my LTD, I have a volume, three-way, tone knob, but tone is always on 10. I do want to put Jim Root's demonum, I can't say that word, pickups in it and wire it like Jim Root's stat. What do you think of this? That sounds pretty badass. One of the guitarists in my band actually has the Jim Root pickups, and they sound so freaking good. And I'm not usually the biggest fan of EMGs and stuff, but those sound good. They sound really nice. As for the tone always on 10, Now, what I've always liked is Misha on his signature guitars, at least his customs. He has, no, I think he hasn't done his signatures. But yeah, Misha from Periphery. On his signature guitars, he has the tone knob as a push pull, but when it's in its normal position, so when it's pushed down, it is inactive. So the signal is just passing straight through it, and it's technically then on 10. But if you want to use the tone, you can actually then pop the knob and pull it up, and then it activates the tone, and then you can control it. I'd like that idea. You have the option of using the tone, but you don't necessarily need to. For instance, on my own guitars that I would build for myself, I would just have a volume knob, personally. But I understand why people like tone. But for the most part, a lot of people I talk to, which are metal musicians, to be fair, they always just have the tone on full. But I'm more into the Spirit Box Ginger Sleep Token type of music with a bit more Slipknot riffing. Not sure if his pickups are good enough for this style. Thoughts? I don't know. From what they're very aggressive sounding pickups. They're very saturated as well. If you're looking for something that is a lot more clearer in a way, then yeah, the Seymour Duncans Nazgul and Sentient, those are pretty typical for metal stuff. But I've always found them a little bit lacking, to be honest. That I would more actually, for that kind of stuff that you're talking about, Ether, would be probably nail bombs from Bare Knuckle. Possibly, they would work pretty well. They're aggressive sounding enough, but they have enough clarity to actually get your lows to sound roughly like those bands that you're talking about. But I mean, researching and trying to find and source what kind of pickups they use is always a plus. For instance, with Roman and Ginger, I'm pretty sure that in his OD Venus, he has bare knuckles. Well, nowadays, in a couple of his guitars, he has the MSBs, I think. But at least from Omer, they had bare knuckles in them to start with. Spirit Box, I'm not actually sure what he uses. I would not be surprised if he uses something similar. Meanwhile, with Sleep Token, I don't know. UK based band would make sense if they had bare knuckles. It's UK. I really do like bare knuckle. I've only had aftermaths in one of my guitars. They were a bit too aggressive for my taste, and I sold that off though. Might sound stupid but when Jim plays cleans with his EMGs, it sounds amazing. No, that is exactly what I have always said. It's like I don't necessarily like EMGs for metal. Everybody uses them for metal, and I understand why they do, but they can tend to sound a bit muddy. But the clean tone on EMGs, they actually are not that bad. Bare Knuckle are my favorite right now. I love the pairing of War Pig in the bridge and Nail Bomb in the neck. That is a good pairing. But yeah, I strongly recommend Bare Knuckle. I'm actually planning to, when the time comes, to do some upgrades on the pine guitar. I'm planning to get some bare knuckles for that job. Well, that is a very, very rough and dirty engraving there, but it does the job.